Olivia Parker clutched her threadbare shawl tighter around her shoulders as she slipped through the early morning shadows of Ellsworth, Kansas. The frontier town was just beginning to stir in the pale light of dawn. The year 1873, bringing no relief to the drought that had devastated the region or to the hollow ache in her children's bellies. The bell above Thornton's general store jingled as she entered, her heart pounding beneath her faded calico dress. Mr. Thornton was busy with his morning inventory, his back turned as he counted sacks of flour. 3 children waiting at home, no food for 2 days, and not a penny to her name. Desperation had driven her to this moment. With trembling hands, Olivia slid a loaf of bread beneath her shawl, the simple act feeling as heavy as murder. She turned to leave, praying her footsteps wouldn't betray her. "I believe you forgot to pay for that, madam." The deep voice froze her in place. It wasn't Mr. Thornton who had spoken, but a tall stranger leaning against the counter, his eyes steady beneath the brim of a well-worn Stetson. Dust from the trail still clung to his denim and leather, marking him as recently arrived. I. Tears welled in Olivia's eyes as shame burned through her. The bread slipped from beneath her shawl, landing with a dull thud on the wooden floor. Mr. Thornton turned at the noise, his face hardening as he realized what was happening. "Thieving, Mrs. Parker. After all the charity this town's already shown you, my children haven't eaten in 2 days," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Emma's got fever and the little ones, that's no excuse for stealing," Thornton said sharply. "I've got a business to run. Sheriff Dawkins will have something to say about this." The stranger straightened, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the store's plank floor. "How much would a month of groceries for the lady and her children cost, Mr. Thornton?" The storekeeper's eyebrows shot up. "A month? That'd be near $15, Mr. Westlake." "Cole Westlake," the stranger said, extending his hand to Olivia. His palm was calloused but warm. "Just arrived from Dodge City. And it seems I'm buying your groceries, Mrs. Parker." Olivia stared at him, unable to comprehend this unexpected kindness. "Sir, I can't accept. You can and you will," Cole said quietly, pulling out a leather wallet and counting out the money. "Add some beef and medicine for a child with fever, Thornton." The storekeeper's demeanor changed instantly at the sight of money. "Of course, Mr. Westlake. Very generous of you, sir." Olivia felt light-headed with relief and shame. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." Cole's weathered face softened slightly. "No repayment necessary, just a Christian duty to help neighbors in need." He tipped his hat and turned to leave. "Wait," she called after him. "At least let me thank you properly." "My home is just at the edge of town, the small white house with the crooked fence. I could offer you supper once these provisions are prepared." Something flashed in his eyes, hesitation, perhaps before he nodded. "I'll consider it, madam." The bell jingled again as he stepped out into the dusty street. Mr. Thornton began gathering supplies, muttering under his breath. "Lucky for you, that cowboy has more money than sense. Your husband's been gone, what, 2 years now? About time you figured out how to fend for yourself instead of taking charity." "James didn't choose to die in that mining accident," Olivia said quietly, her grief still raw despite the passing of time. "And I've taken work wherever I could find it." "Well, seems you found yourself a new benefactor," Thornton replied with a knowing look that made Olivia's cheeks burn. "Though what a man like Cole Westlake is doing in Ellsworth is anybody's guess." "What do you mean?" Thornton leaned across the counter. "Word travels fast along the cattle trails. That man's got a reputation as one of the finest horse trainers and drovers in 3 states. Usually commands top dollar working for the big ranchers. Strange to see him passing through a small town like ours without a herd or outfit." Olivia gathered the first of the groceries into her arms, her mind swirling with questions about the mysterious stranger who had saved her from both hunger and jail in a single gesture. Later that afternoon, Cole Westlake stood at the broken gate of Olivia Parker's modest home, a small package tucked under his arm. The house was weathered but clean, with signs of careful mending visible in the patched curtains and the meticulously swept yard. A few scraggly chickens pecked at the dry ground, and a small vegetable garden showed signs of struggle against the persistent drought. Before he could knock, the door swung open to reveal a young girl of about 10, her blonde hair braided neatly despite the obvious fever in her cheeks. "You must be Emma," Cole said, tipping his hat. "I'm Mr. Westlake." "Mama said you might come," the girl replied, her voice hoarse. "She's making stew with the meat you bought us." Her eyes were solemn and old beyond her years. "Thank you for helping my mama. She cries at night when she thinks we're sleeping." Something twisted in Cole's chest. "Well, no need for tears tonight, little lady. I brought something for that fever of yours." He handed her the package. "Willow bark and honey from the apothecary." Emma's eyes widened. "Real honey." "Emma, don't keep Mr. Westlake standing on the doorstep." Olivia appeared behind her daughter, wiping her hands on a worn apron. She'd changed into a clean blue dress, her chestnut hair pulled back in a simple knot. Despite the clear signs of hardship, there was a quiet dignity about her that struck Cole more forcefully than any fancy parlor woman's practiced charms. "Please come in, Mr. Westlake. It's not much, but we're grateful to have you." The inside of the small house was spotlessly clean, with handmade quilts adding color to the sparse furnishings. Two smaller children peered from behind a doorway, a boy of about 7 and a tiny girl no more than 4. "Samuel and Lily, come meet Mr. Westlake," Olivia called. "He's the kind gentleman who helped us today." The children approached shyly, their resemblance to their mother unmistakable in their deep brown eyes and delicate features. "Are you really a cowboy?" Samuel asked, eyeing Cole's worn boots and the revolver strapped to his hip. "I work with cattle and horses," Cole replied, settling his tall frame onto a chair that seemed too small for him. "Been doing it since I was not much older than you." "My papa worked in the silver mines," Samuel said proudly. "Mama says he was the strongest man in Montana before we came here." A shadow crossed Olivia's face. "That's enough chatter, Samuel. Set the table now, please." As the children busied themselves with chores, Cole watched Olivia move about the small kitchen, graceful despite her obvious exhaustion. "I don't mean to pry, Mrs. Parker, but what brought you to Ellsworth from Montana?" Olivia stirred the pot of stew, not meeting his eyes. "After James died, the mining company gave us a week to vacate the company housing. I had family here once, an uncle, but he passed before we arrived. By then, we had nowhere else to go. And no other family to help. None living," she said simply. "I've taken in laundry, sewing, whatever work I could find while keeping the children. But the drought has hit everyone hard. Fewer people can afford to hire help these days." The simple meal that followed was richer than the ingredients suggested, a testament to Olivia's skill in stretching limited resources. The children's table manners were impeccable despite their obvious hunger, and Cole found himself oddly touched by the small family's resilience. After the meal, as Olivia put the younger children to bed, Cole sat on the small porch with Emma, showing her how to make a whistle from a willow branch. The evening air had cooled, bringing slight relief from the relentless Kansas heat. "Will you stay in Ellsworth, Mr. Westlake?" Emma asked, her fingers working carefully on the whistle. Cole hesitated. "I hadn't planned to." "That's too bad. Mama smiles when she talks about you. She doesn't smile much anymore." When Olivia returned, she found Cole teaching her daughter the names of the stars appearing in the darkening sky. Something about the sight this rough cowboy being gentle with her child brought an unexpected lump to her throat. "Emma, it's time for your medicine and bed," she said softly. "Say good night to Mr. Westlake." After Emma had gone inside, Olivia joined Cole on the porch steps. For a while they sat in companionable silence, watching the stars brighten in the vast Kansas sky. "Why did you help us today?" she finally asked. "You're a stranger to this town. You owed us nothing." Cole kept his eyes on the distant horizon. "My ma raised me to believe that a man who can help but doesn't is no man at all." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I've been on both sides of hunger, Mrs. Parker. I know what it is to watch children go without." "You have children?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. A shadow passed over his face. "No, but I was one of 8, lost 3 siblings before they saw 10 years. My pa was killed in the war and ma." He trailed off, then shook his head as if clearing away unwanted memories. "Let's just say I've seen good people driven to desperate acts by hunger." The honesty in his voice moved her. "Please call me Olivia." "Olivia," he repeated, his deep voice making something flutter in her chest. "I should be going. Thank you for the meal." She walked him to the broken gate. "Will you be in town long? I'm not certain." "I came looking for work with the Hanscom spread outside town. They're supposed to have some horses that need breaking." "Curtis Hanscom has the largest ranch in the county," Olivia confirmed. "They say he's fair if demanding." Cole nodded. "Then I'll call on him tomorrow." He hesitated, then added, "If it's not too forward, I'd like to check on Emma's fever in a day or two." The simple concern warmed Olivia more than it should have. "We would welcome your company, Mr. Westlake." "Cole," he corrected with the hint of a smile. "If I'm to call you Olivia, then it's only fair." As she watched his tall figure disappear down the moonlit road, Olivia felt something she hadn't experienced in years, a tiny spark of hope flickering to life in the darkness that had surrounded her since James's death. 3 days later, Cole Westlake guided his dun gelding through the bustle of Ellsworth's Main Street. The job at Hanscom's ranch had come through breaking and training 12 new horses for the ranch's expanding operations. The pay was good, the work familiar, and it would keep him in the area for at least a month. He told himself that checking on the Parker family was simply a Christian duty, making sure the groceries were sufficient, that Emma's fever had broken. But as he approached the small white house, Cole acknowledged the truth he'd been avoiding. Olivia Parker and her children had gotten under his skin in a way no one had for years. He found her in the backyard, hanging laundry on a line strung between 2 gnarled cottonwoods. Her sleeves were rolled up, revealing slender arms tanned by outdoor work. She hadn't noticed him yet, and for a moment he watched the grace in her movements, the gentle humming as she worked, the way the sunlight caught in her chestnut hair. "Afternoon, Olivia," he called, dismounting and tying his horse to the broken fence post. She started, then smiled a genuine smile that transformed her tired face. "Cole, the children will be delighted. They've talked of nothing but you since your visit. How's Emma's fever?" "Broken yesterday, thank the Lord. That medicine you brought worked wonders." She gathered her laundry basket. "Have you eaten? There's cornbread and beans from midday." They settled at the small kitchen table, and Cole updated her on his new position at Hanscom's ranch. "It's good work, and the foreman's cabin they've offered is sound. Small but solid." "That's wonderful news," Olivia said sincerely. "Hanscom rarely hires outsiders for important positions. Your reputation must have preceded you." Cole shrugged. "Horses are the one thing I understand completely." "Always have. Better than people?" she asked with gentle teasing. "Much better," he admitted with a rare smile. They don't lie, don't pretend to be something they're not. A horse with mean intentions will show it plainly. People. He trailed off, shaking his head. We're more complicated, Olivia agreed. Though I've found most people are just trying to survive the best way they know how. The conversation flowed easily between them, more easily than Cole had experienced with anyone in years. As the afternoon passed, they moved to the porch, where Cole mended the broken rocking chair while Olivia darned socks, when the children returned from their neighbor Mrs. Gunderson's house, where they had been helping with chores in exchange for reading lessons. Their excitement at seeing Cole was palpable. Samuel proudly showed him a fishing line he'd fashioned, while Lily offered a slightly crushed wildflower she'd picked for the nice cowboy. The simple domesticity of the scene stirred something long dormant in Cole's heart. It had been years since he'd allowed himself to linger in one place, to form connections that couldn't be easily severed when it came time to move on. The nomadic life of a drover had suited him precisely, because it demanded nothing beyond the job at hand, no roots, no commitments, no opportunities for the kind of loss that had shaped his early years. As dusk fell and he prepared to leave, Olivia walked him to his horse. "The children have Saturday afternoons free from chores," she said hesitantly. "Samuel has been begging to try his fishing line at the creek, perhaps, if you're not too busy at the ranch." "I'll come by afternoon," Cole found himself promising. Hanscom gives half days on Saturdays to those not on essential duties. Her smile in the fading light caused a tightness in his chest that was both pleasant and alarming. That Saturday marked the beginning of a pattern that would extend through the hot Kansas summer. Cole's visits to the Parker home became regular first weekly, then more frequent as July melted into August. He taught Samuel to fish and whittle, showed Emma how to gentle the nervous filly he'd bought her from a neighboring farm, and delighted Lily with carved wooden animals that quickly became her treasured possessions. For Olivia, he built shelves, repaired the leaking roof, and reinforced the chicken coop against predators. But more importantly, he listened to her, really listened as she spoke of her hopes and fears, her memories of James, her determination to give her children more than mere survival. The town of Ellsworth noticed. Gossip spread like wildfire in frontier communities, and the sight of the renowned horseman spending his free time with the widow Parker and her children provided ample fodder for speculation. "You're becoming quite the topic of conversation," Curtis Hanscom remarked one evening as Cole finished working with a particularly difficult bay stallion. The ranch owner was a fair man in his 50s, respected throughout the county for building his operation from nothing. Cole continued brushing down the horse, his expression neutral. "People should mind their own affairs," Hanscom chuckled. "In a town this size, might as well ask the sun not to rise." He leaned against the corral fence. "The widow Parker is well respected despite her difficulties. A good woman who's had more than her share of hardship." "She's certainly that," Cole agreed cautiously. "I knew her uncle's solid man. Shame he passed before they arrived." Hanscom studied Cole thoughtfully. "You've done fine work here, Westlake. I'd be interested in discussing a more permanent position once this breaking job is finished." The offer caught Cole by surprise. Permanent positions weren't something he sought or accepted, no matter how favorable the terms. His life was on the trail, moving with the seasons and the work, answerable to no one but himself. Yet instead of his usual immediate refusal, Cole found himself saying, "I'll consider it, Mr. Hanscom." Later that night in his Spartan cabin, Cole sat cleaning his revolver by lamplight, his mind troubled by the day's conversation. The truth was, for the first time in over a decade, the thought of moving on when a job ended didn't bring its usual sense of freedom. Instead, It left a hollow feeling in his chest, an emptiness that had everything to do with a small white house and the family it sheltered. But what did he have to offer a woman like Olivia Parker? A life of wandering, a man whose past was better left unexamined. She deserved stability, security, all the things he'd deliberately avoided. His thoughts were interrupted by an urgent pounding on his door. He opened it to find one of Hanscom's young ranch hands, breathless and wide-eyed. "Mr. Westlake, sir, there's trouble in town. Some drovers passing through got liquored up at Donovan's saloon. They're causing a ruckus, and word is they've set their sights on the widow Parker's place, sir. Something about her owing money to one of their outfit." Cole was on his horse before the boy finished speaking, his heart pounding with a fear he hadn't felt in years. The 5-mile ride into Ellsworth had never seemed longer, each moment stretching as his mind conjured increasingly dire scenarios. The commotion was visible before he reached town, lanterns blazing at Olivia's small house, horses tethered haphazardly at the broken fence. Cole approached cautiously, his hand on his revolver as voices carried through the night air. "Don't seem to recall any debt to you gentlemen." Olivia's voice was steady, though Cole could detect the underlying fear. "Your husband borrowed $50 in but 3 years back," a slurred voice insisted. "Interest makes it 75 now. We got the paper right here." "My husband never mentioned such a debt, and I've settled all his legitimate accounts," Olivia replied. "I'd like to see this supposed paper in the daylight with Sheriff Dawkins present." "Now, that ain't very hospitable, madam," another voice drawled. "We've come a long way to collect." "Surely we can come to some arrangement." Cole dismounted silently, tying his horse well away from the others. Moving through the shadows, he took stock of the situation. 3 men stood on Olivia's porch trail, worn cowboys with the hard look of men who'd spent too many years driving cattle and dodging the law. Olivia stood in the doorway, a shotgun held steadily in her hands, her children presumably behind her in the house. "Evening, gentlemen," Cole said, stepping into the pool of lantern light, his voice deceptively casual. "Seems like an unusual hour for conducting business." The 3 men turned, hands instinctively moving toward their sidearms before registering Cole's relaxed stance and the unmistakable authority in his bearing. "This ain't your concern, mister," the tallest of the 3 said, his bloodshot eyes narrowing. "This is between us and the widow." "Thing is," Cole replied, moving closer, "Mrs. Parker and her children are under my protection, so any business with them is very much my concern." A flicker of recognition crossed the second man's face. "Wait, ain't you Cole Westlake? Rode with the Jenkins outfit out of Texas?" Cole inclined his head slightly. "I've worked for many outfits." The atmosphere shifted perceptibly. Whatever Cole's past contained, his reputation was clearly known to these men, and it was enough to give them pause. "Now," Cole continued, "I suggest you boys mount up and continue on your way. Any legitimate debts can be addressed through proper channels in daylight with the sheriff present." The tallest cowboy hesitated, his pride warring with self-preservation. "This don't end here. That money's owed and we mean to collect." "Then bring your proof to Sheriff Dawkins tomorrow," Cole said evenly. "But tonight you're leaving." For a tense moment, it seemed the confrontation might escalate. Then the third cowboy, older and perhaps wiser than his companions, laid a restraining hand on the tall one's arm. "Come on, Jeb. We'll sort it proper tomorrow." With muttered curses and dark looks, the 3 mounted their horses and rode toward town. Cole watched until they were out of sight before turning to Olivia, who had lowered the shotgun. "Are you and the children all right?" he asked, the forced calm in his voice giving way to genuine concern. "Shaken, but unharmed," she replied, her hands trembling slightly now that the immediate danger had passed. "I'm not sure that shotgun would have been much protection. It hasn't been fired in years, and I don't know that I could have pulled the trigger even if it worked." Cole gently took the weapon from her hands, confirming his suspicion that it was unloaded. "You showed courage, Olivia. That counts for more than firepower sometimes." Inside, he found the children huddled together in the back bedroom. Emma was attempting to comfort the younger ones, though her own face was pale with fear. "Is it true, Mr. Westlake?" she asked as he knelt beside them. "Are we under your protection now?" The simple question carried weight beyond the child's understanding. "Yes," Cole answered, surprising himself with the certainty he felt. "Yes, you are." After settling the children back to sleep with assurances of safety, Cole and Olivia sat at the kitchen table, a lamp burning low between them. He listened as she explained that James had indeed borrowed money in Montana, but had meticulously repaid all documented debts before his death. "These supposed creditors appear whenever they think I might have come into money," she said wearily. "Last time it was after I sold James's pocket watch to pay the doctor for Emma's scarlet fever. Before that, when the town took up a collection for us after we arrived." "Vultures," Cole muttered, anger simmering beneath his controlled exterior. "They prey on women alone, counting on fear and isolation to force payment." "They're not entirely wrong," Olivia admitted, staring into her cup of weak tea. "I am afraid and I am alone." Cole reached across the table, covering her hand with his. "Not alone," he said softly. "Not anymore." The simple touch, the quiet words, they crossed a boundary that both had been carefully maintaining since their first meeting. Olivia's eyes met his, vulnerability and hope mingling in their brown depths. "Cole," she whispered, "I don't want your protection out of pity or obligation." "Is that what you think this is?" He shook his head, struggling to articulate feelings long buried. "Olivia, I've spent 15 years avoiding connections, avoiding this. Whatever's growing between us terrifies me more than any gun battle I've faced." A small smile touched her lips. "It frightens me too. After James died, I locked away that part of myself. The children needed a mother, not a grieving widow. And now I find myself thinking of things beyond mere survival," she admitted. "When you're here, I remember what it feels like to be a woman, not just a mother, to laugh, to hope." Cole's thumb traced gentle circles on her wrist, the simple contact sending warmth through both of them. "I've never stayed in one place longer than a season since I was 16 years old. Never wanted to. But the thought of riding away from Ellsworth, from you and the children, feels wrong in ways I can't explain." The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Neither moved to close the physical distance, both acutely aware of the watching eyes of the town, of the vulnerability of Olivia's position, of the complexities that entangled them. "Stay tonight," Olivia said finally. "In case those men return, there's a cot in Samuel's room." It was a practical suggestion, entirely proper. Yet it represented another step toward a shared future neither had anticipated. When morning came, Cole rode into town with the first light, determined to settle the matter of the supposed debt before it could threaten Olivia again. Sheriff Dawkins, a laconic former Union soldier with a reputation for fairness, listened to Cole's account of the previous night's events with growing concern. "I know the type," Dawkins said, twisting his graying mustache. "Drift through towns looking for easy marks, widows especially. The debt is usually fabricated or inflated beyond recognition." "I want it resolved," Cole stated firmly. "If there's a legitimate claim, I'll pay it myself. If not, I want those men warned off for good." The sheriff eyed him speculatively. "You're taking quite an interest in the widow Parker's affairs, Westlake." "Yes," Cole replied simply, offering no further explanation. Dawkins nodded slowly. Let me handle this officially. You being there might escalate matters given your reputation. It was mid-afternoon when Cole returned to Hanscom's ranch to find the owner waiting for him by the corral. Curtis Hanscom's expression was unreadable as Cole dismounted. Heard you had some excitement last night, Hanscom said without preamble. Cole nodded, unsurprised by the speed of small-town information. Some trouble at Mrs. Parker's. It's been handled. Sheriff Dawkins ran those 3 troublemakers out of town with a warning not to return, Hanscom confirmed. Seems they've tried similar schemes in other settlements along the trail. He paused, studying Cole. You've been thinking about my offer. I have. And Cole looked out over the sprawling ranch, considering his words carefully. If I were to accept a permanent position, I'd need certain accommodations. Hanscom's eyebrows rose. Such as a proper house, not just the foreman's cabin, something suitable for a family. The words felt strange on Cole's tongue, yet right. And I'd need to understand your position on a foreman with personal obligations in town. A slow smile spread across Hanscom's weathered face. I was married for 32 years before my Sarah passed, Westlake. I've never begrudged a man his family ties. He extended his hand. The northeast pasture has a good site for building. You'd have my blessing and help. They shook on it, the simple handshake representing a future Cole had never imagined for himself. But there was one more hurdle, the most important one before such plans could proceed. That evening, Cole rode to Olivia's house with nervous energy he hadn't felt since his youth. He'd bathed and shaved with unusual care, and wore his one good shirt beneath his trail-worn jacket. In his saddlebag was a small velvet pouch, the only valuable he'd carried with him through years of wandering. He found the family in the garden, the children helping Olivia harvest the last of the summer vegetables before the coming autumn frost. The domestic scene, Olivia's hair escaping its pins as she worked, Samuel proudly carrying a basket of carrots, Emma showing Lily how to tell when tomatoes were ripe, struck Cole with the force of revelation. This was what he wanted. Not just Olivia, though his feelings for her had grown beyond anything he'd thought himself capable of, but this family connection, belonging. They shared a simple supper, the children chattering about their day, Cole unusually quiet as he gathered his courage. After the meal, as Olivia prepared to put the younger children to bed, Cole asked if she might join him on the porch afterward. "Is everything all right?" she asked, noting his serious expression. "Yes," he assured her. "Just something I need to discuss with you." The wait while she tended to the children's bedtime routine seemed interminable. When she finally joined him on the porch, the night had deepened, stars spreading across the Kansas sky in brilliant profusion. "Cole." Her voice was soft with concern as she settled beside him on the step. "You've been troubled all evening." He took a deep breath, turning to face her. "Olivia, I've accepted a permanent position with Hanscom's ranch." Joy brightened her expression. "That's wonderful news. The children will be ecstatic to know you're staying. There's more." He took her hands in his calloused fingers gentle against her work-roughened palms. "Hanscom's offered land for a house, a real house, not just a cabin, and I'd like to build it for us, for you and the children, for the family we might become." Olivia's eyes widened, her breath catching. "Cole, are you?" "I know it's fast," he continued hurriedly. "I know you may need time. But I've spent my life running from attachments, from putting down roots, from letting myself care too deeply. And then I met you and your children, and suddenly all that running seems pointless." He reached into his pocket, withdrawing the small velvet pouch. From it, he removed a delicate gold ring with a small pearl, simple but elegant, clearly an heirloom. "This was my mother's," he explained, his voice rough with emotion. "The only thing of value I've carried with me all these years. She made me promise I'd give it only to a woman I loved completely, a woman I'd build a life with." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. "You've never spoken of love before." "Because it terrifies me," he admitted, "but not as much as the thought of living without you, without the children. I love you, Olivia Parker. I love your strength, your kindness, your fierce devotion to your children. I love the way you've persevered against hardships that would break most people. I'm asking you to marry me not out of obligation or protection or practicality, but because I want to build a life with you, to help raise those remarkable children, perhaps to have more children together someday." Olivia's tears spilled over, tracking silver in the moonlight. "The children adore you," she whispered. "And I've been afraid to admit how deeply I've come to care for you. After James died, I thought that part of my life was over. I never imagined feeling this way again." "Is that a yes?" Cole asked, hope and uncertainty warring in his expression. Instead of answering with words, Olivia leaned forward, pressing her lips gently to his. The kiss was tender, tentative at first, then deepening with the release of emotions too long contained. When they finally parted, breathless and smiling, Olivia nodded. "Yes, Cole Westlake. Yes, I will marry you." The simple gold and pearl ring slid perfectly onto her finger, as if it had been made for her. They stayed on the porch for hours, planning their future, sharing hopes and dreams long suppressed, sealing promises with kisses that grew increasingly confident. The next morning, Emma found them asleep on the porch swing, Cole's arm protectively around Olivia, their hands intertwined to display the glinting ring. The little girl's excited squeal woke the household, bringing Samuel and Lily running to witness the joyful news. "Does this mean you'll be our pa now?" Samuel asked Cole directly, his young face serious. Cole knelt to the boy's level. "If you'll have me, son. I won't try to replace your father, he'll always be your pa, but I'd be honored to be a father to you, to love and raise you as my own." The boy considered this solemnly, then nodded. "Pa would want Mama to be happy, and you make her smile again." The wedding took place that October after the harvest was in, and Cole had made substantial progress on their new house. The entire town of Ellsworth turned out for the ceremony. Curiosity about the unlikely pairing of the wandering horseman and the struggling widow giving way to genuine goodwill as their love story became known. Curtis Hanscom stood as Cole's best man, while Emma, now fully recovered and blossoming under Cole's attentive care, proudly served as her mother's maid of honor. Samuel carried the rings with solemn dignity, and little Lily scattered wildflower petals with enthusiastic abandon. Sheriff Dawkins, who had become a friend and ally to the couple, performed the ceremony in the town's small church. When Cole and Olivia exchanged their vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the congregation, not because of the hardships they had overcome, but because of the palpable joy that radiated from them both. "I never thought I'd find home in a person," Cole told Olivia as they danced at their wedding celebration. "I spent so many years looking at the horizon, never realizing that what I needed was right here in front of me." "A loaf of stolen bread brought us together," Olivia marveled, her head resting against his chest. Who could have imagined such a beginning would lead to this? By Christmas, they had moved into their new home, a sturdy, welcoming farmhouse built on Hanscom land, but close enough to town for the children to continue their schooling. Cole's position as ranch foreman provided stability and respect, while Olivia established a small business selling her preserves and baked goods to appreciative townsfolk. As the years passed, their family grew. A son, James Curtis Westlake, arrived the following autumn, named for both Olivia's first husband and the man who had given Cole the opportunity to put down roots. 2 years later, a daughter they named Hope completed their family, a living symbol of what had brought them together and sustained them through challenges. The Parker children thrived under Cole's guidance. Emma developed her mother's skill with needle and thread, eventually opening a dressmaking shop in Ellsworth that became known throughout the county. Samuel inherited Cole's way with horses, working alongside his stepfather at Hanscom's ranch, before eventually taking over as foreman when Cole established his own smaller horse breeding operation. Lily, the baby when Cole had entered their lives, grew into a confident young woman with her mother's compassion and her stepfather's quiet strength. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Cole surprised Olivia by taking her to the general store where they had first met. Mr. Thornton had long since retired, but the new proprietor, knowing the story, had prepared a special display. A single loaf of bread and a small card that read, "The finest investment ever made. You ever regret it?" Olivia asked as they walked home arm in arm through the streets of Ellsworth, now grown into a prosperous town. Settling down with a desperate widow and her 3 children instead of continuing your life on the trail. Cole stopped, turning to look into the eyes that still captivated him after all these years. "Not for a single moment," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "That day in the store, I thought I was just helping a woman and her children in need. I had no idea I was actually saving myself." "From what?" she asked, reaching up to touch his weathered cheek. "From a lifetime of wandering without purpose," he replied, covering her hand with his. "From never knowing what it means to be truly needed, truly loved." He kissed her then, there in the middle of the street, unconcerned with the smiles of passing townspeople who had long ago accepted their love story as part of Ellsworth's cherished lore. Later that evening, as they sat on the porch of their home watching their children play in the yard, Cole's arm around Olivia's shoulders, they reflected on the journey that had brought them together, a desperate act of theft, an unexpected act of kindness, and the courage to build a life neither had imagined possible. "It still amazes me," Olivia said softly, "how completely our lives changed that day in Thornton's store." Cole nodded, his eyes on their youngest children playing tag while Emma helped Samuel repair a saddle nearby. "The best things in life often come from the most unlikely beginnings," he said. A starving woman stealing bread, a lonely cowboy finding a home. Who would have predicted this? "I'm grateful every day that you were there," Olivia said, leaning into his embrace. "Not just for the groceries, though we desperately needed them, but for seeing something in me worth believing in when I'd stopped believing in myself. And I'm grateful you invited a trail-worn stranger to dinner," Cole replied, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Best invitation I ever accepted." As twilight deepened into night and stars appeared over the Kansas plains, the Westlake family gathered on their wide porch, a family forged not by blood but by choice, by love, by the simple recognition that sometimes the greatest acts of courage are not those of physical bravery, but those of opening one's heart to possibilities never imagined. For Cole and Olivia Westlake, a loaf of stolen bread had indeed been the beginning of their story, but it was their shared courage, compassion, and commitment that had written every chapter since, creating a love that would endure long after the frontier town of Ellsworth had faded into history. A testament to the truth that sometimes the most unexpected meetings can lead to the most extraordinary lives.